Hi friends, in today's video I wanted to talk about my Seattle apartment hunting experience and also kind of show you guys what it's like to be apartment hunting in Seattle. Basically, I'm from SoCal, but I'm moving to Seattle in August 2025, and last week I went to Seattle to explore the different neighborhoods and to also just better understand what I'm looking for. So after that week of apartment hunting, I've collected everything that I'm looking for in an apartment. I finally narrowed down the pros and cons to each unit, and hopefully in this video you can get a better understanding of what you guys should keep in mind when you're apartment hunting, especially in Seattle. I'm gonna quickly go over what I was specifically looking for in an apartment. So I'm moving to Seattle with a roommate, and we really want a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, so we would each have our own bedroom and also have our own bathroom. With that being said, we really wanted similar room sizes just so we can have like a similar living experience and we wouldn't have to disagree on like which room you would want and stuff like that. So definitely similar sized bedrooms. As for neighborhoods, we found that we really like Fremont or Ballard. We just felt a lot safer because we're just two little girls in a new city, so we just felt the safest there. We were open to like different neighborhoods, but I think we definitely prioritized the units in those neighborhoods. Also specifically, we love a room in Fremont. It's literally our favorite cafe, and we just love Ballard because there seems to be like a lot of things to do there, but at the same time it just felt a lot safer. As for the apartment property itself, we really wanted to make sure that it has a gym because I don't know if you guys know, but Seattle rains so much and I feel like it would demotivate me to go exercise or gym if I had to like bus somewhere and deal with the rain, you know? Like it would be really nice if I could just go downstairs and work out and not have to blame the rain for not exercising. So yeah, definitely wanted a gym in the apartment, but we did notice that a lot of apartments in Seattle does have a gym. We also really wanted an in-unit laundry. I think both my roommate and I have only experienced doing laundry like outside of our unit, so we'd either have to go downstairs to the basement or like walk outside and carry our load of laundry, and it was just so, it seems minor, but it was such a hassle, and we'd have to make sure that someone else wasn't using the laundry. We just really wanted an in-unit laundry just so that we don't have to deal with all of that again. Also, I love content creating and natural light is very important, so it would be nice if the unit faced like southeast, southwest, or we noticed that some of the buildings that face north were still really bright because the sun was reflecting off other buildings. So just in general, it would be nice to have good natural lighting. My roommate will also be bringing her cat Suki, so we also had to make sure that they're pet friendly. Those were all the criteria we had in general for the apartments. And now let's look at each apartment that we toured, talk about why we liked some of them and why we turned our head immediately. Also got my laptop here just to go through everything. The first apartment that we toured crossed off a lot of our check boxes. It has similar bedroom sizes and it was 2-bed, 2-bath. It was also located in Westlake, which isn't the neighborhoods we were considering, like Fremont and Ballard, but we were open to Westlake just because it's very close to work. I mean, the commute would have been a lot easier, and Westlake seemed fairly safe, or actually really safe, so we were open to that. And the apartment itself had a gym, like a social room. We really liked the layout of this apartment. We thought of it as a great backup choice. However, when we were comparing this apartment to the other ones, we noticed that it just felt a lot older. I think this building was constructed in like the 1900s. You can just tell it was not as modern. So there's several buildings that this apartment has, and some of the buildings didn't have an elevator, whereas the other ones did, but it just felt a little run down and it wasn't as bright as I had hoped. Gym was kind of mid, community room was kind of mid. It was a great backup option, but nothing really stood out about this one. Also, this specific unit that we toured was going for around $3,000, which is under our budget. The next apartment that we toured is in Fremont, and this wasn't an apartment that we had initially planned on touring. We were just walking around Fremont while we were grabbing our coffee had a room and we noticed that they had a now leasing sign. So we decided to walk in and we noticed that they did have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And the unit we were touring was going for $33.80, which again is great. I think all of the units that we toured were under our budget, which is good. However, there were so many hard no's about this unit. First of all, it's a sliding door, so it felt a little weird. Like it just felt like a studio and they decided to add sliding doors to create some bedroom spaces, but it just felt like a facade. Also, there's no windows in the bedrooms. I mean, the living room was really bright, but not having windows in both bedrooms just felt like you were in a box. Yeah, that was really weird. I mean, the rooftop was really nice. The community social room was also nice and the gym was nice. Like literally all of the amenities were amazing. It's just that the unit itself was really weird. Our third apartment is in Fremont, but it's right next to Aurora Avenue. And so we noticed that it was really loud. Also, this apartment had several clear no's. For example, they didn't have a gym. The roof was nice, but it wasn't like shocking. Also, the unit smelled really bad, which was off-putting. We asked why the unit smelled so bad, and apparently it's because someone had run the washer and didn't close it properly, but we were just like confused by that. Yeah, and the floor map of the unit was kind of weird. The first unit we had toured, it was going for $3,300, and then the second unit that we were looking at was going for $3,600. But we noticed that for other apartments that were luxury apartments were going for the same price. So for us, it didn't make sense to pay the same amount for an older, smelly apartment building. And then the fourth apartment that we toured is in Fremont. Ugh, I love Fremont. This unit was going for $3,360. Actually, we toured 2 apartments and I think they were going for like similar prices, or at least it was under $4K in total. This apartment building would have been perfect. I mean, it didn't have a gym, but there was a gym literally across the street from this building, so it didn't really matter. We would just pay for membership there. But the first unit that they showed us, we liked how the living room was kind of disconnected from the bedrooms. Unfortunately, had carpets, so they were initially planning on getting rid of the carpet and instead installing hardwood tiles. But then they saw the carpet and they thought that it wasn't as worn down as they had thought, so they decided to just keep the carpet, and that was a big turn down. Like I think we really liked the hardwood tiles. And then they showed us a second unit and we liked it to a certain extent. They would be renovating literally the entire unit and the floor plan was pretty nice, but she told us that no one has lived in this unit for 3 years, and that like tripped us out. We were like, what? Like it was just giving us goosebumps, and we were just like, why has no one lived there for 3 years? But this unit would have been really nice. There was like a farmer's market literally right below the apartment. Location was amazing. It's just the unit itself didn't work out. Okay, now we're heading to the Ballard apartments, which we noticed were a lot nicer, more modern. They all have great amenities and they all have pretty even sized bedrooms, 2-bed, 2-bath, in-unit laundry. So now all of these apartments were coming down to the nitty-gritty, being super picky in what we wanted. So the first apartment that we toured, they didn't have any 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom units open for touring, so it was really hard to gauge what the unit would look like, but they showed us what a 1-bedroom, 1-bath would look like just to see the finishes of the unit. So a 1-bed, 1-bath was going for $29.50. The gym was pretty nice, but also the bedroom was like a sliding door and it didn't have windows. But I think the lady said that for the 2-bed, 2-bath, there would be like a normal door and that there would be windows, because I think typically the 2-bed, 2-bath are corner units, so they would have a window. It was just really hard to gauge what it would look like just because we couldn't tour it in person. I mean, everything else was really nice. We really liked the kitchen. The living room was really bright, although kind of small, and the community room was nice. The roof was amazing, but I think just because we couldn't tour a 2-bed, 2-bath, we decided not to consider this apartment, but it would have been really nice. And then the next apartment that we toured was also in Ballard, and a 2-bed, 2-bath is around $3.2K. We noticed that it was floor-to-ceiling windows. The living room was nice. I think the bedrooms also had floor-to-ceiling windows. They didn't have as many units to tour. I think the first unit that they showed us, it was a 2-bed, 2-bath, but it was on a lower floor, so the lighting was not great. I think it was covered by a lot of trees. I think we just didn't feel at home when we first entered the building itself, and so the unit just felt a little like kind of sad. And they showed us another 2-bed 1-bath, and this was on a higher floor and it was a lot brighter. The windows were again really nice. They have a nice community room and a gym, but I think because all of these apartments were so nice, we later just kind of talked about what felt at home, and this one, when we entered the building, it just didn't feel like home. We just felt a little down for some reason. I don't know why. I think it was definitely a smaller apartment, smaller lobby. Next apartment is in Ballard, and this one went for $3,500, and they showed us a unit where it was on the very bottom floor. We wouldn't be living in this unit, but it had a similar floor plan, and we noticed that the ceiling was so high because it was on the bottom floor. We wouldn't live on this floor, but we thought that the ceiling was so nice. Like, it was so high up. I think it was like 16 feet tall. I don't even know. It was just really tall. The windows were really nice. It was giving floor to ceiling windows, but it wasn't. It was just really big. Also, gym was really nice, pet friendly, roof was cool, but it was just, again, they didn't have the unit available to tour that we would actually be living in. Also, we would have to like walk outside our building to go to the gym. Just like a lot of nitpicky stuff, like the small details we just weren't really vibing with. Also, I think because we couldn't really tour what our exact unit would look like the ceiling would be a lot shorter for our unit. I don't know. I think it was definitely tough because we are moving in late July to early August. A lot of units weren't available to tour at the time we went to Seattle, so it was a bit tougher. I think what we realized is like once we entered the apartment building itself, we want to feel at home, but again with this one, it was just like kind of mid. We just think that we had better options for the price. Next apartment was also not initially on our plan to tour, but we were just walking around the area and we had free time, so we decided to go in. I don't know about my roommate, but I really fell in love with this apartment. It just sucked because they had no 2-bedroom 2-bath to tour, which is why I think it wasn't in our initial plan to tour. But oh my gosh, the gym was so nice. It was huge. It felt like an actual gym, not like a small like hotel gym. The lighting was amazing. It was so bright in there. I will say it was really hot, but it was so bright in there. Floor to ceiling windows, and it just felt really clean. It felt really safe. It was right next to 2 bus stops. Community room, amazing. I mean, I guess there was a reason why it didn't work for us, but it just really sucked. I really like this unit. It was on the pricier side. It was $3,600, so $1,800 per person. But honestly, I would have been down to pay that price if it meant having such a nice apartment. We didn't know when they would have an open unit, so I think we just weren't ready to risk that lottery. The next apartment that we toured is in Ballard, and we were also really excited to tour this apartment. This is another really nice luxurious apartment in Ballard. This one was also going for $3,600, and it had all the great amenities. Again, their gym felt like an actual gym. The leasing lady wasn't really helpful with us because we were talking about how we wanted to move in like late July to early August, and there was one unit that seemed to be aligning with what we were planning on, but she just wasn't really helpful. I mean, the unit itself was really nice. Big windows. It wasn't floor to ceiling, but it was so big that it almost felt like it was. But the rooms felt kind of weird in terms of floor plan. One room was significantly brighter than the other one. Yeah, I mean, it was really nice, but it just didn't feel fair if one of us had the bigger window room. I mean, the kitchen was really nice. It had a nice island, but again, I don't think we were willing to pay that price compared to another one that we had seen. And then the last apartment that we had toured was a bit far for us to go to work, but I think it was still commutable. This apartment was right next to the highway, so I noticed that it was pretty loud, which I'm a very light sleeper, so I don't think I would have been able to sleep well if we had lived in this apartment. I mean, the gym was really nice. It had a Smith machine. Community room was nice, and the roof. Also, the bedrooms were pretty nice, but it wasn't available for the time period that we were hoping for, again, late July to early August. It would have just been really hard to gauge what the unit would look like, and they didn't even know if it would be a similar floor plan. The windows were really nice. They were like massive. Also, this apartment was, I think, going for like $3,400. I'm not entirely sure, but I just remember that it was under $4K. They don't have the listing right now on their website. I think someone took the unit, so I couldn't find the exact price, but it was just around that price. But yeah, those were all of the 10 apartments that we have toured. There was one more that we toured, which we applied for. I honestly don't know if we'll even end up choosing that apartment or we'll get it, but it meets all of our criterias, but we'll see. I hope this video was somewhat helpful for you guys to just kind of see what the 2-bed, 2-bath apartments are like in Seattle, and also maybe kind of help you guys kind of gauge what to look for in an apartment. I love apartment hunting. I love touring all these different units and again romanticizing what it would be like to live in that unit. I'll be moving to Seattle soon, so be on the watch out for those videos, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.